Welcome, everybody, to Crypto Mondays Collective weekly call. Today's guest is Rob Viglione, and he is with Horizen Labs and Horizen Blockchain. A little bit of background. I've worked with Rob starting back in 2017. I had been doing some mining and following a bunch of different cryptos and following Zcash, and then came across Zencash as a fork of that. This was about the time where there was a big kerfuffle with Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. About that same time where they had the fork and Ethereum came into existence. So it was a very interesting time. There was a lot going on in crypto in the 2017 time frame. And when I found Zencash, it was, something that looked very interesting. And I was following all of the issues that were happening and launching a new token. And even with all of the very significant issues that they had, I was very impressed with Rob and his partner Rolf and the transparency and how they handled the issues and the token, and were able to keep it alive and move forward. And it's just been quite a journey since then. I jumped on and designed and built a tracking system for payments for a bunch of different nodes that were able to share in the block generation. And that was a supposedly 6-month project that is still going and still being worked on 7 years later. Not as much, but it was quite a ride and quite a new concept of what we were doing with tokens at the time. Horizen Labs got created, and maybe Rob, you can fill us in on that and all of the different updates that are going on with Horizen, the blockchain, where you're going, ZK rollups and privacy. I mean, it's just, you guys have so much going on. It's just, quite a lot to handle. So with that, Rob, if you want to take it over, and you're still on mute.
I'm happy to, Alan. I appreciate the intro, and I'll say Alan's being humble because he actually built the infra backbone for what ended up being the largest node network in crypto. So I think at our peak, Alan, correct me on the numbers, but I think we had something like 45,000 nodes on the network, which are like independent instances of the software running on different people's machines around the world. It was massive, absolutely massive. So
yeah, that was on one system, and I think there were another 5,000 on the other system. So it was closer to 50 at our peak. It was a lot of nodes being tracked.
Exactly. And these are full nodes of a UTXO-based blockchain that had a ZK-based shielded pool, which is non-trivial. So it's not like we have small instances of nodes. So it was a massive amount of work and a massive load on the network. So, it's been a lot of fun working with Alan over the years. But so in terms of just kind of quick background for me and the company and the different projects, just to frame it, I literally have one slide to share with you guys and to anchor the conversation around. I'm not going to bring it up yet, but if you can enable sharing for me, that would be great, because I'll pull it up in a few minutes. But my background, guys, and really the through line to get to where we are right now, I've long been like a big privacy advocate, and I call it a cypherpunk wannabe. I'm probably not quite old enough to be a legit cypherpunk. It's probably the generation or half a generation ahead of me. But definitely a cypherpunk enthusiast. And by that, I mean, it was this movement to bring the world together and use technology to basically bring as much freedom to the world as we could. And there were enabling technologies to that historically, like PGP, cryptography. And then when Bitcoin came around, the cypherpunk community was that first mailing list the Satoshi started sending around the white paper to introduce this concept of Bitcoin back then. And today, it's blossomed into a pretty amazing Web3. So I was lucky enough to get into the Bitcoin community relatively early. For me, my kind of like vintage of getting to Bitcoin was in the 2012 and then kind of like financially in 2013. But what it gave me was kind of the opportunity to shape my career around this, because I was just really gung-ho for the movement of what we were doing around the world. And it was completely different movement back then than it is right now. What I like about this collective, and actually coming in, and this is my second appearance here, guys. Thanks for having me. But what I like about it is that this is the flavor and kind of the feel and the kind of humanity that I view it as like the early days of Bitcoin. So it's cool to come to be part of these types of groups. For me personally, my journey was with Bitcoin kicked off when I was living and working in Afghanistan. I was there for about 18 months, and you can imagine I was there doing stuff with the military. In my previous career, I was an Air Force officer and got in on the intel business, and I was a physicist, mathematician. So I was really like on the quant side of that world, and also what's today the Space Force. Back then it was called Space Command. So it was like I ended up just randomly in this country in a different part of the world that was far from my home, and I got the Bitcoin bug back then. And the interesting thing about getting the Bitcoin bug in Afghanistan was that I was literally the only one, I think. And it was a great opportunity though to explore and share what is Bitcoin, how do you set up a wallet, what does it mean to execute a transaction, and so forth. How do you what's a private key, how do you handle private keys, and so forth. But the lesson for me was that coming from the U.S., where we have the world's most developed capital markets, maybe not the world's best banking system, but we have a banking system that works. We have monetary authority, we have all of the things that you would want in kind of an industrialized society. But in parts of the world like Afghanistan, they don't. And in particular, back when I was there, and this was in 2014, when I started evangelizing Bitcoin in Afghanistan, was they were, they had the problem where they realized, at least the government that existed in Afghanistan back then, they knew was fragile, and it was held up entirely by the US and NATO presence that was there. And they had a currency called the Afghani, and they knew that the Afghani was absolutely worthless the second that we pulled out, which ended up being true. But what it meant back then was that everyone that I talked to, it was like 100% hit rate of understanding why Bitcoin was important. And this was back in the days when people thought that Bitcoin was kind of this crazy thing that you would only get into if you wanted to buy drugs on Silk Road. So that shaped my perspective, because as Bitcoin and as some of the other assets that came about back then started doing well enough, it gave me the opportunity to kind of pivot careers. And I was very fortunate to have the opportunity to think, what do I want to do with the next phase of my life? How can I actually contribute to this thing? And my thought was, well, I'm going back to academia, and say what you will about academia, but I will be a lifelong learner, and I wanted, in this particular moment of my life, a structured approach. And to me, it was economics and finance was my PhD. So I went back for that, and I shaped my entire dissertation and experience, in my PhD career around Bitcoin and blockchain, which is really cool. That, and then on the side, being an angel investor and trader, and I was the first, or one of the first advisors to what's today Aave. So I got to witness the kind of birth of DeFi, and back then I could tell you that I missed product market fit moment for DeFi, but that's kind of what happens when you're in the weeds sometimes. But like it just led me like this through line for me as an individual, and diving into this new world that we're creating with crypto. I came at it from the privacy and kind of try to change the world perspective. This was not, I want to day trade, I want to build like some sort of trading system so that I can just get rich. That's definitely one of the goals, right? Probably for many of us in the industry. But I came at it from, what's the tangible value we're adding to the world? And then, like Alan mentioned in the intro, when Zcash came about, and actually adding for the first time in history this funny thing called zero knowledge cryptography on chain, to be able to obfuscate and like provide a privacy pool so that people can actually send each other, you can actually save money anonymously, you could send money anonymously. And I thought that this was amazing. It was a complete breakthrough that I knew I just had to be part of. So maybe not the smartest thing, I don't know, but instead of just being part of it by joining Zcash, I joined this kind of splinter group out. This was back in the days, and Alan gave the perfect context. This was back in the days of like forks and Ethereum versus Ethereum Classic, Bitcoin versus Bitcoin Cash, and so forth. And we thought, let's take this tech, the ZK tech. Not that we had any gripes with the Zcash community. We're actually a very friendly relationship and love what they do. And their product market fit is being a privacy coin. We wanted to do more with this class of tech. So fork it, start as a privacy coin as well, but then actually very quickly go into privacy applications. So that was the background there for launching this project. And probably today it would be more difficult to launch that kind of project. This was back in the day when kind of forking a project and launching something new was cool. It's probably not as cool these days, but we learned a lot. And I could definitely share and commiserate plenty of entrepreneur screw-up stories that we made. We probably made every mistake under the sun. But probably we followed the number one rule in crypto, which is stay alive. And if you stay alive long enough, you actually outlive your competitors and you can live to fight another day to find your PMF or product market fit, which leads us to exactly where we are now. So I don't know, I don't want to like monologue this entire time. So guys, like please like feel free to just kind of, interrupt, raise your hand, or literally just interrupt at any point if something sounds interesting or if you have a question, or we can wait till the end.
Either way
But,
works.
yeah, please. Sorry, did you want to say something, Alan?
No, I was just gonna say, keep going.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
You got a lot to cover.
Yeah, I know. And I'll try to be a little bit more succinct. Luckily, I only have one slide. But the final piece of the puzzle, though, before I bring up that slide, is we launched kind of true to like Nakamoto fashion as like a group of just very enthusiastic community members that were in this like anarchistic world of anyone pitch in wherever you want that makes sense. And we were not structured at all. And like it works, like it really depends on like what you're trying to do. If you have a very simple product or idea, I think that could be a perfectly fine way of doing things. But what we realized early on was that it was sort of chaos, and you had a lot of cooks in the kitchen and not much being done about it. So we ended up like initially the first thing that we did was, okay, this is crypto, it's open source software. Let's create a foundation. So we launched a foundation back in 2017 to complement the project and advance some of its goals. And that's where Alan and I ended up initially working together was with the foundation. But then in 2019, we realized like we need some external capital here. Let's bring in some VCs that are actually interested in what we're doing. And build a real company around it. So we did that in 2019. Horizen Labs was born. DCG, the digital currency group, was our initial seed investor, and then we had others come in. And we built this company that I think is it's a work in progress always. Like, what does it mean to be a Web3 company? I think any of you out there, entrepreneurs, you're probably going through similar questions. Are we the type of company that's VC-able and VC investable? Are we the type of company that could be acquired one day? Are we the type of company that can IPO one day? These are all questions we're still trying to figure out. But right now, it doesn't really matter. We have some missions in front of us that we're doing. I guess they were like one big mission and two products that flow from that that we're working on, and we're figuring the rest out as we go. And I think we're doing pretty well. So right now, what we have is a company of a little bit over 60 employees. We have 2 centers around the world, so one in New York City, one in Europe, in Milan, Italy. And we have just this phenomenal group of cryptographers, cryptographic engineers, product people, business people, marketing people, you name it, like anything that you could need to run an organization. We have now, and I think we're doing pretty well, like in terms of like we're doing good work. We'll see where it goes. But just to say, like to recap those 2 things that we're working on, and the link between them is that we have this overarching thesis that Web 2 is gonna be absorbed by Web 3 in our view, right? And the idea there isn't that everything in Web 2 is going to have a full conversion to Web 3, but what I mean is that there will be an intersection for like most business processes. There will be an intersection for most assets. You name it, most financial transactions, even just like currency transactions, there will be some intersection with what we call Web3 today. And that intersection could mean many things. It could mean like an app, being completely smart contractized and decentralized on one extreme, or it could mean literally a Validium being created of some off-chain database that just needs to prove something on-chain to be able to feed into some other product or process, and anything in between, right? Like I envision companies, and hopefully ours one day, will be tokenizing our equity and offering that to the public, in different kind of platform like STO type of platforms. You're going to see like RWAs on chain. You're going to see DeFi absorb chunks of TradFi, and probably like there will be some like mix of this world that comes about. But our thesis is, in order for this to happen, you need two really important things, and one is privacy. So that original thesis that we had, that we're not talking about like just transaction privacy, but privacy for like anything that goes on chain that might be sensitive to someone at some point in time, right? And you can make up 1,000,001 different examples of what that might be. But the privacy technology has to be seamless, has to be integrated and embedded, and has to just work, right? It can't be computationally cumbersome, can't be too expensive. It's just got to be part of like your web browser today. You guys probably don't even realize it. You have like an HTTPS connection to probably whatever you're looking at online right now, right? And that's the type of cryptographic integration we need for Web3 to enable privacy. And that's a major part of what Horizen Labs does. Now we do that with two applications. Two applications. One is Horizen, like the original platform that launched back in 2017, that has evolved, and like it's going through its biggest evolution right now, I would say, as your biggest kind of product fit evolution, not technological evolution. I have more to say about that as well. But we're actually moving from being an L1 to being an L3 on base, which is really interesting because the positioning there, it's basically saying like, let's stop being tech first and like then thinking customers last. Let's think customers first, and tech comes to make their lives better, right? And the idea with base is, this is the hottest, most rapidly growing, and like ecosystem that we have the most confidence in, and we want to be there. And what we're doing is we're providing a privacy platform for that ecosystem with Horizen. So we could not be more bullish on that. I think it's an amazing narrative, amazing PMF, but we still need to validate it, right? So we're deploying now. We're on testnet, and we're trying to figure out the kind of MVP that we want for the platform before we declare mainnet live. And I'll show you, that'll be my one big slide that'll show you kind of some thoughts around that. The second thing that we work on is called ZK Verify. So it goes towards, again, this privacy thesis in the class of technology that makes privacy possible, or there are multiple in crypto, but the one that we're specialists in is called zero-knowledge cryptography. I mentioned with Zcash. There's a value chain for ZK. You need to generate a proof on some data. You can aggregate proofs, but at the end of the day, you always have to verify every single proof. And we have a one-stop shop way, like the world's most efficient way of verifying ZK proofs, because we're building for a future where basically there's 1 trillion or more proofs generated every year. And just for scale purposes, I think Ethereum could handle something like 50 proofs a block, like if all it did was verify ZK proofs. So that's not going to scale to trillions, right? So anyway, so that's the through line, that's the story. And the thing that I was going to mention, really to focus on here, rather than just kind of plugging Horizen Labs, because we are this organization that does multiple things towards this one, big end. The one thing that's new, hot, and is a work in progress, but we're just super excited about is Horizen, and just move over to base. So I see this like share button is highlighted. I'm the worst at sharing, guys. So interesting. I wonder how I can do like a tab. I see application windows, but I'm not seeing what window I would be sharing. And it's kind of dangerous to think that I would just like share everything. So
Yeah, be careful.
yeah, exactly. Documents advanced, screens, don't want to share entire screen, application windows, but they're all just kind of like unknown application windows. Let's see what to do about this. Maybe I will, by sharing all screen is doable. I just need to go ahead and slideshow and max
Hide everything
this.
else.
Yeah, exactly. I'll slideshow and max this, and then let me know if it works. Okay, now I think that worked. I'll share desktop. Privacy settings, as you can imagine, someone like me, it's not as easy as you would imagine. Okay, Zoom. Okay, it's asking me to quit and reopen. So, guys, I think I'm gonna, you know, do what would be a let's modify this. And I'm not going to share with you because it's asking me to quit and reboot everything, which would be a little bit disruptive.
Yeah,
But
let's.
so what I'll do is I'll speak to the graphic, and really what the graphic is, it shows the Horizen ecosystem and kind of a notional roadmap that we have that we still need to. You guys were going to get the first preview of it before we even went public, but what it is, it's pretty straightforward in that we are occupying what we think is a very valuable and unique niche out there, making a bet on the base ecosystem. So in the base ecosystem, for those that haven't been tracking, is literally the Coinbase L2 that they launched with the optimistic stack as part of the super chain on Ethereum. So the graphic that I have started with basically this Ethereum base, and now this is Horizen, Zen, the L1, making it an explicit choice here that we want to bet on Ethereum. Not that there can't be other like really important pieces of infrastructure and L1s that are out there. There were some other absolutely amazing, interesting projects, but Ethereum is really scaling in a way that's very advantageous for projects like ours to be key parts of its future infrastructure. And if you track Vitalik, the founder of Ethereum, if you track his kind of concepts of scaling Ethereum, he originally had this big sharding roadmap, and then recently, basically, they collapsed that and said L2s are kind of L2s and L3s are our version of sharding these days. So it was really nice to have kind of like long-term roadmap stability to be able to go and then choose what part of that ecosystem made the most sense for a project like ours. And what we were looking for were users. So when we started looking at these different projects, so you start with Ethereum, that, and again, like the slide's a little bit outdated, but we had something like almost $100 billion in TVL on Ethereum, like $100 billion of assets, put on chain into TVLable or DeFi products. And then on top of that, you have this L2 using the optimistic stack that Coinbase deployed, and Coinbase really governs, called Base.
So Rob, who would
Yeah.
use your L3 chain? I mean, what's the target?
So the target are for applications on Base that either in full or in part would benefit from privacy added to them.
Okay.
So yeah. So specifically, our first go-to-market is going to be targeting a whole bunch of private DeFi applications and like private RWA stuff. And we think that like the biggest customers there are going to be institutions, but we come from the retail market ourselves. So also geared towards retail audience. But basically anyone that wants privacy and privacy overlay on their DeFi activities, like for kind of like round one.
Okay, so this would potentially include AI agents that could use your services to either prove something, ownership of something, or tap into it to verify somebody else.
100%. Yeah. So the way that we look at it, and to get even more specific, guys, because we're launching this new platform on Base. So new platform means it doesn't have like Base has 3 billion plus in TVL again as of the date of that chart. It's not gonna have 3 billion in TVL on Horizen's like platform on Base. But what we will have, so by that I mean it's not for like rapid DeFi trading like that, where you need liquidity and liquidity pools to execute on. What it is for, though, are for like, just as an example, today we had a conversation with an institution that actually wants to do proof of reserves and proofs of off-chain transactions, but put that information on-chain for a variety of reasons, reg compliance, cooperation with other parties, to actually take in like proof of reserves from customers to be able to like validate like some sort of like smart contract reaction or execution based on it. And this is the example of like a financial or private a private like financial transaction that we can put, or private financial information we can put on chain in a way that's privacy preserving. So that's kind of the first target. Alan, like what you said about AI agents, of course, like anything that comes to like ZK verifiability, if you need privacy around the data sets that are being ingested and proven upon, and like why would you want a data set? You wouldn't put the data set on chain itself, but really, if you're working with a project like Sapien as an example, which is also deployed on Base, that actually rewards people for inputting data and like munging data that ingests into AI agents or into AI algorithms, and you want to be able to track who's doing what so you can actually pay people for the work they perform that goes into the AI economy. Things like that are perfect use cases for like zero knowledge technology, if you need privacy wrappers around and so forth.
Yeah, one of the things that we're working on is we're working with Agent Z, and they have a protocol called iCubes. So it's taking two pieces of information or two sections, which is a public version, and then it'll encrypt a bunch of data and plug it into this package basically and put that on the blockchain.
Oh, cool.
So it
Nice.
seems like the identity, there might be instances where you still need to prove who you're actually interacting with,
Yeah.
as an agent. I mean, the agent that we're trying to do is to help build communities.
Mhm.
And if you start having people working together, I can see a need for, okay, is this whoever had just contacted me, are they really the person that they say they are? And can we prove that through the meta information in an iCube? And then, will they let us into the private information that they have stored?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah,
it seems like a
totally.
good fit.
It,
Yeah.
it, it does. And maybe some of those primitives that I was going to share on the slide that can enable that. So first of all, like a ZKID kind of thing where you can actually not necessarily prove that I'm Rob, but prove that I'm a unique human being and not pretending to be 10,000 unique human beings. I think that type of identifier would be important there.
Yeah.
And then you could build like a network graph basically of people's social connections there, right? Or like connections of like if there's work that could be performed, like where you need to link it to a human being or a unique human being, you can actually do things like that in privacy preserving ways. You could ultimately issue like payments to people. You may not want the entire world to see exactly your full stream of payments over time, but still prove that like, hey, like I'm not, like dodging taxes, for instance, for like a
Right.
platform, right? All these things would be enabled, and we have the primitives there starting with like a ZKID, but then just the full suite of ZK tooling. So like we're going to have an integrated proof generation network, integrated SDKs for ZK, integrated ZK Verify, our other like platform that I mentioned before. So we can have kind of like a seamless experience of generating and verifying proofs within the self-contained platform. And then a bunch of other things. So like we're also exploring right now, and this is why this is like a fun conversation to have amongst friends because our roadmap isn't yet published for Horizen, but we're also looking at taking advantage of like trusted execution environments for smart contracting, where you can actually have the operations of smart contracts done in a privacy preserving way, but the outputs go to the public. So there's different things like that that I think are like really important enablers. That like our goal is to just cluster all of these privacy preserving tools, primitives, and applications into a single area on top of the hottest ecosystem. So um, anyway, that's kind of it's an interesting thing for me, and Alan's been with us literally from maybe like what was it, like a month or two after launch that you officially started working with us. Like we've been around for a while, since 2017. So count the years on that. My math isn't the best, but it's been a while. And to see this, kind of OG project like that evolving into something that's actually super relevant, super modern, and now plugged in a way that is kind of like on that, we call it like innovation frontier, but it's really on the frontier of just like what's happening in Web3 right now. So really pumped for that. And it's interesting to see how we got here and going through, this weird process of a group of anarchists, launching a project together to going through forming a foundation to launching a labs code to then having a DAO and then have the DAO kind of ratify and approve, all these decisions, since we launched that a couple of years ago. So it's been a wild journey, guys. And just to leave you here, I think this is kind of the end of this journey of getting us from like, day one to here, but it's really the start of something I think pretty amazing, where I think the world has to go. And now we have a completely different environment where, like as an entrepreneur, an American entrepreneur, we felt a lot of adverse pressure from the US government over the years, especially against privacy applications, or, if not to say an outright war on crypto or war on privacy, we certainly, were not welcomed with like open arms with what we were doing. But now we feel the opposite. So that's why we're actually like charging into this and like really, really going all out to basically, execute on the original vision that we had back in 2017, but just didn't have the right environment, the right tools, the right capabilities. And now I think it's all here. So,
And the environment has changed. I mean, just
big time.
the world thinking. Okay, let's take a couple questions.
Yeah,
Needham, go ahead.
yeah, I had a question. Robert, this is great. A good conversation, and I've been following the project for some time. So when you make a comment on the adverse political and regulatory environment, I think, was the conversation more towards privacy? I know we had some conversation Monero, which is obfuscation, which provides for inability to track and trace transaction, versus a cryptocurrency project, which was viewed as something which was not in line with many of the safe, quote unquote, safe banking practices. So I think the sentiment around privacy preservation is different from cryptocurrency and having anything of value. So could you elaborate a bit more on that? And more importantly, I think as we look into shift in the sentiments and again observability from government perspective, how do you see that flourishing from what you're building? So zero knowledge proof, again, both from performance and from privacy preservation perspective, is an important tech. Allows to do a lot of things without breaking any of the existing regulatory framework around transaction monitoring and so on and so forth. I'd love to double click on that a little bit and you get your perspective on that. And I'll stop and thank you again.
Yeah, good, because my RAM's not very good. I would forget all the threads, but they're really good actually. And I think you nailed it. So we were a little bit further down, like where we felt the pressure. Just to be frank, was not like the government didn't come after us like Tornado Cash as an example. We were not targeted like that. Where we felt it were with the institutions that we were working with. So for instance, like there's this wave of exchange delistings of privacy projects. So that was probably the main focal point for where we felt pressure. But what we did about it was probably like, I think exactly where you were going with it was, we decided like, let's not die on this sword. Let's actually, we believe in privacy long-term, and we're here, for the long haul and to really make an impact in the world. So let's step away from transaction privacy, because we know that this is a very sensitive issue for regulators. And we're frankly not tooled or equipped with the right tools to do things like reg compliant on private transactions. And this was some years ago. Right? We didn't have a ZK ID integrated. We didn't have KYC AML and so forth. We didn't have any kind of like gating on the system. Anyone could use a shielded pool. So what we decided was, let's deprecate the shielded pool. Let's not die on this. Let's step back and let's focus on application privacy, because we thought that there was a completely different story of preserving application data and like privacy around that versus transaction privacy, which kind of gets you into the crosshairs of certain regulators or enforcement authorities. Was the next thing, like on ZK Tech itself, in terms of like the questioning, we've been in ZK since basically at the beginning in Web3 on ZK, and we've tried a number of different angles for applications and platform development and so forth. And I can say that the technology has never been as good as it is right now. It seems like every week there's a new breakthrough in ZK, and whether that's a new type of coprocessor, whether that's like some way of compressing proofs, or whether that's a new way of aggregating or whatever. But like what we consider the broad ZK value chain, so from the perspective of a developer or a user, really a dev user, we want it to just be a very simple integrated process that's very little different and like as minimal overhead as possible as just writing a normal program. And this is where the tooling is just way better these days. Now, we're not experts in like ZK virtual machines as an example, or ZK VMs, There are some phenomenal products that are out there in terms of creating something like what Risk Zero has, or like what 16 Labs has done, where you have a virtual machine where you can actually write the code for your application, and then like when it compiles to a ZK circuit behind the scenes, and you're not having to worry about circuit construction yourself. Things like this just make it way easier now to work within ZK. There's tooling available from like some of our partners like Sindri that just makes writing circuits or generating circuits a lot easier, just like the ZK VMs. And then you have the infrastructure for ZK that's just way cheaper, way faster, way more performance than it ever was, but still like it's overhead compared to like just writing, like a Rust program. So like, are we there yet? I don't know, but I think we're at least like near an inflection point where all of a sudden ZK can start becoming much more relevant part of different systems. But maybe, to wrap this up, maybe this is why like a platform like Horizen is actually relevant as a standalone platform for now, because my vision is that all of Web3 will have integrated privacy one day. But it does impose an overhead. So I think we have to kind of segment the market in a way where for those that really care about this, where it can actually add enough value to be worth it, you go to a dedicated platform that has it all, right? But ultimately, one day, I view this stuff everywhere.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, Robin, you have your hand up.
Yeah, sorry. Get Robin in here.
Hi, Rob. Thanks very much. Fascinating. Thanks so much for your talk. I enjoyed it last time around. So, but last time around, I didn't understand it as well as I am this time around. So things are improving. I wanted to know how you decide what to build, because like we're building Agent Mondi at the moment to serve the Crypto Mondays community, to help them to learn, earn, and connect. But we don't really know what they want, So how do you know what to build? How do you know where the market's going, and how do you decide? Or do you just build stuff that you think is going to be cool, or do you actually have real demand for products before you build them?
Yeah, this is the question, and probably every Web3 entrepreneur needs to answer this question, honestly. I would say we've made all the mistakes in the book of initially building what we thought was cool. We got enamored with certain technology, so we kind of went with that. We thought we were so cool and smart by building out this like really bespoke stuff. And that was the wrong way to do it, like absolutely wrong way to do it. And then we got a little bit smarter. So where we are now is probably a mix of kind of like entrepreneurial intuition, and that we are creating new things that don't exist and creating new markets that don't exist. So to some extent, we have to generate hypotheses. And I guess what we're much better at doing now is generating and testing hypotheses much quicker. So the way that we're structured as an org, maybe this can be helpful for some of the entrepreneurs on the call, is so we have, and maybe this is like if you're starting out, I would say don't do this. We have two core projects that we work on, like Horizen and ZK Verify. Now there's a through line; they're connected. They're like they reinforce each other, and we think that we're stronger with both of them. But that's a really like nuanced strategic decision that we made after years, and we might be wrong on, right? Well, time will tell. But the way we look at it is for our kind of little corner of Web3, there's certain types of customers that we care about. So we want to dominate the ZK application space. Like we think that there's a lot of blue ocean here where there are not like just amazing world-class companies yet that dominate ZK applications. There are some, like a lot of the ZK talent has really gone into the kind of platform side, like building out like Risk Zero's like ZK virtual machine, or Succinct's ZK virtual machine, and others, Linnea and so forth. There has not been a lot of attention, like there's not a world-class company today. I hope we're the first that actually nails ZK applications. But the way that we're looking at that initially, because we don't know what the right ZK applications are, we are also like having this, like we're throwing out this like application environment with Horizen, and then like a whole bunch of real, like, potentially substantial economic incentives. Like we're talking like $50 or $100 million worth of incentives, depending where the price of Zen is on any given day, that we can focus to attracting like a whole lot of rapid innovation in this like, contained space. As a company, the way we look at participating there is, well, we know that there's like a sort of like table stakes primitives, like a ZK ID, there's, some, basic, kind of ZK DeFi stuff. And we're interested in that. We're interested in providing basically like cornerstone applications that fit within the thesis that this like clustered privacy preserving ecosystem will matter. Now, I don't know if we'll be right about that, but that's one. And really the application environment, not the applications themselves, is where we look at collecting users and doing rapid experimentation. And then we're making another bet, which is, and it's just sort of like a combined privacy and AI bet, kind of coupled, because we believe in this world there will be proofs, like cryptographic proofs, generated everywhere continuously, like your phones, like your computers, your refrigerator, your solar panels, all these things will be generating proofs of activity of what they're doing in order to plug into the Web3 economy. And like this volume of proofs is going to need basic infrastructure to exist. And the one chunk of basic infrastructure that we saw as common across it, where we can be agnostic on proof type and type of cryptography or whatever, because we don't know where the world's going, is we know they all have to be verified, right? And that's where we came up with ZK Verify. And we figured actually we have this application environment with Horizen. They can actually feed and like drive proofs into ZK Verify. But now that said, that's the intuition, that's the logic. And we treat them both as hypotheses to be validated. And the way that we're validating them is like we, number one, acknowledge that we're pre-PMF on both of these things. And we have a very aggressive and structured BD exercise right now where we're just doing the normal. Here's where like you go from being a Web3 company to like doing the Web2 thing, where we just build this like CRM machine that we're just like grinding out there, working with customers and just getting as fast real-time feedback as we can from them on how to form these products.
Yeah,
So there's like one little chunk in there as well, because that's not the whole world. We actually are in process of launching internally a strategic innovation group of literally like 3 people that just do like by sprint, like basically their mission for the first 3 months, I told them, is generate a whole bunch of AI agents for internal use. That's like your job for the first 3 months. Every sprint cycle, deliver a new agent. And we'll have like an internal job board for AI agents in the company. And like that group will be tasked with generating them. But that's just the starting point. But then it's ultimately, this is our group to do the rapid experimentation.
Wow, we're just trying to build one at the moment. By generating 3 every 3 months or whatever. And then my second question is on how do you live between Web 2 and Web 3? We had the agentic commerce subgroup of the Decentralized AI Agent Alliance meeting yesterday or the day before. And there's 2 elements. The way we were talking about the payments side of e-commerce, and we were saying, well, card is still prevalent. Everybody's using card, they're mainstreaming, but actually we want our agents to be using crypto to transact with, but nobody's using that. And then on the front end, how do you talk to those people? Because everybody's talking Web 2 at the moment. They don't understand Web 3. So how do you sell Web 3 to them as a Web 2? So do you wrestle with that at all, or?
Oh, for sure we do. And again, like I said, we've made every mistake in the book. Years ago, we set up like a big internal enterprise blockchain initiative. And by enterprise blockchain, I just mean literally like going to enterprises in like the Web2 world and trying to convince them to come on chain. And we failed. I don't know if we failed because we had the wrong idea or it was too early or the wrong people. I'm not sure. I suspect some mix of that. But now with ZK Verify, we actually think that we have a product that just lends itself really well to Web 2, because it's literally, we don't want, we finally have the technology so that Web 2 businesses don't have to actually change much, if anything, of what they're doing to come on chain. And an example here is we have one partner called Space and Time that their entire, their technology generates ZK proofs on SQL databases. So this is just an example. Don't change your databases at all. Just generate proofs on them, and you can use those proofs on chain in composable ways. So that's one way that we're now tackling it. And I think that the final piece there is our experiment that we're actually kicking off now is to build a B2B product for ZK Verify that abstracts away all the crypto elements. Like we don't want a business to come to us and have to download a wallet, load it up with cryptocurrency. No, just pay us a subscription every month and we'll give you the functionality that you want.
Great, thank you. That's fascinating. Thanks a lot.
Of course.
Okay.
And yeah, one last question. I think this what you touched upon was quite interesting, Robert. When at the Denver, I realized we all have been in this space for quite some time, and I don't think we've reached from a usability perspective. And so, you have wallets, you have key management, which is complicated in itself, and then you're adding a layer of verification validation, which was implicit in blockchain world, and now we're actually adding this proof infrastructure on top. There's a whole education element which makes this complicated, and for them to have the ChatGPT moment, which is accessibility to AI for the masses, which is really exponentially taken over. We are still evolving it, the 100, 200 million people who are still dealing with, crypto-esque elements of it. So when you focus on usability, two questions. One, you may not have the answer, just want your perspective on this is, the simplification of that experience that one, there's a walleting structure, which is digital signatures, and then you have the proof, which is proof of something, whatever that may be, in blockchain sort of. And so they're not mutually exclusive from that perspective. Second thing, so one is perspective, and second question, which you just mentioned, is we don't want companies to worry about, you mentioned from B2B perspective, this is just pay you for a service and not have to worry about the crypto-esque element of this. What I think I'd like to understand is I don't think digital signatures are a substitute of proof and vice versa. They have two distinct places in this ecosystem. And how do you sort of bridge the education gap between the two for me not to have to worry about these artifacts? So I'll shut up now and I'll hand back to you.
Yeah. Frankly, I don't know. I think we're still in there. We're still in the mix of trying to figure it out. But this is, frankly, an example of why we chose the Base ecosystem, because we think that Coinbase is a leader in actually making crypto easy for people. So it was us kind of making like a fuzzy bet of who do we want to be friends with out there that we think will probably get it right with enough time and resources, which they have. So that's just one example of like, we're not sure where the industry is going product-wise. From the perspective of like our world of proofs being generated everywhere, that's actually separate and distinct, like you said, from the digital signature issues that we have in terms of like managing wallets and so forth. Sorry, 1 second. And for that world, we really, depending on the use case, it doesn't matter. Like you're not going to be asked to have like digital signatures, so it'll just be, like as an example, we have customers that use like the SQL database state snapshots, for instance, and they're not worrying necessarily about private keys, and they're not worrying about like crypto payments or things like that, and like accessing like a Web3 application. They're literally just getting some type of utility out of the kind of cryptography that we're offering, and that's probably like where we live in this world. We're not big necessarily like yet on the application side ourselves. We have the application environment. We're partnering with guys like Coinbase, and then on the other end, we're developing this B2B product so that our customers really shouldn't have to care about that. But it's all early days, so like I don't know where it's going to go. I do acknowledge that it's a big problem.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you think you would get to the point where you have some application that could display a shield or some icon that says proven by HL or something?
Yes, exactly right. Yeah, so I mean, like it's a silly example, but there's one application area for ZK Verify as an example. Like what do? We provide public verification that some process happened. So and I don't know if this will ever have PMF, but imagine 2 online casinos. One online casino is completely opaque, and you're operating with their internal algorithms. You have no idea if they're cheating you. And you have one casino that says like basically this green check mark of everything's been ZK verified. Every single spin of that virtual roulette wheel, that it's been ZK verified, right? Because there's a public third party that's certifying cryptographically that this is not being scammed. Like that's the kind of example that maybe it's silly, maybe it'll never happen, but it shows like this real world utility potential that has nothing to do with cryptocurrency.
Yeah, I was thinking a little bit more in someone that you're working with online is actually who they say they are, though that type of verification.
Totally. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, and statements that they make, like if they make a statement that they're some amazing influencer, or they've transacted $10 million worth of transactions over some period of time, like you should be able to just have kind of like a green check mark of like this is true or false.
Yeah. Wow, a lot of potential.
Yeah, but that's our dilemma, right? Like this whole industry has a lot of potential, but are you going to go broke before we see it?
Yeah. No, I think that's, it seems like you're right in the middle of the whole privacy play at this point in time. And with agents coming online, that would just, make it go, a lot faster, exponential. So there's a lot there.
Yeah, I think
Okay,
so too.
we gotta tie things up. I don't think we have anybody else with any other questions. Rob, thank you very much. As always, good seeing you and catching up on where the project's going and what you guys are doing, and what it helps to get an idea of what's happening behind the scenes, basically in terms of application capabilities and privacy capabilities and things like that, to be able to move forward and know what's out there, because some of the biggest things in putting agents or new applications together is knowing where to go for particular aspects of it.
Totally agree. I saw someone ask a question, Nathan, on my email or Telegram. Eric, let me give you Telegram just because it's a little bit more, I could respond pretty easily. Just real simple, Rob Viglione. There you go. You guys can reach out anytime. And if you do prefer email, there you go.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Good seeing you, and best of luck in the transition and where you're going with the product and the platform. I mean, there's just a lot there to work with.
Thank you. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
a lot,
Rob.
Rob.
Alrighty.
It was great.
Great
Good seeing you,
presentation.
Rob.
Thank
See
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Thanks.